It's been a while since a show made me feel this way, made me reflect long and hard about the life I've had. To be very frank, it isn't for everyone. If the first 5 seconds turn you off from this show, I get it, I really do. It's a show that's tragic to its core, one that tries to take seriously the subject at hand. It can at times feel gratuitous, and maybe that can be a bit much. The show doesn't hide the fact that it's heavy. But if you do stick with it, if you accept the world the story is trying to build, what it's trying to show, on the other side is a story that, in my opinion, is worth telling. A story about grief and sorrow in a world that's cruel and harsh, that asks the question, what does it take to be happy? Takopi's original sin by Tyson 5 was originally published in Shonen Jump Plus in December 2021, with an adaptation from Studio Enishi airing in June 2025. The story follows Takopi, an alien from Happy Planet sent to Earth to bring happiness to everyone with his happy gadgets. After meeting a girl named Shizuka who was bullied at school, Takopi begins his quest to make her smile, something which he soon discovers is harder than it seems. I love this show. I think it's incredible, but like I said at the start, it isn't for everyone. If you haven't seen it, I suggest that you do, although don't take any of the content warnings lightly. Those are very much warranted. If you're not in the right headspace for it, I'd say be aware of what you're getting yourself into. Even though it may seem cute, this is a dark show that deals with some heavy topics. This is not a show you can sit back and relax to. That being said, I think the show does a fantastic job of tackling those topics. Director Shinya Ino really seems to have a good grasp of the kind of story he's working with. Much like Made in Abyss, a series he was assistant director of, there is a narrow tightrope the show needs to walk, handling the darker aspects of the story with care. And that's where I want to begin. The tone. The biggest criticism I've seen leveled at the show is that it can be a bit much for its own good, misery maxing for the sake of shock value rather than substance. In some respects, I do understand that, but I think that critique misses why the story is told that way. Despite its shocking nature, it is, at the end of the day, a story for teenagers, and to me, the whole point of it is to take seriously their feelings and trauma. How the story portrays the struggle these kids go through is juvenile. I won't argue that it's filled with a lot of adolescent angst, but I think that's the point. It speaks to the emotions at the heart of what children can go through. For them, the things they experience can feel like the end of the world because for them, it is their entire world. What they've gone through is all they know. I remember having deep feelings of despair when I was younger, even as a child for various reasons. And I don't fault myself for any of that, for thinking that the world was a cruel place. I didn't know anything else. To me, the show expresses those feelings I had at that time, and for me to dismiss that would be to dismiss those feelings. It's true that some of those feelings were immature, some would eventually have context later in life, but knowing that doesn't change the fact that I felt the way I did. Stories like these are not meant to be true to life, they're meant to be true to experience. This story takes adolescent pain and anger and makes it into something tangible, the extreme nature of the story emphasizing the kids' struggles. Is it hard to watch? It can be. Is it over the top? Sometimes, but at its core, the show speaks to the experiences of people who need it the most. It's a story about trauma and how people react in the face of that trauma, their attempts to reconcile reality with what they wish to be true. Shizuka's world is filled with hardship, the isolation, bullying, neglect. It's no wonder that she shuts herself off from the rest of the world. The only joy she has is Chappy, and eventually that gets taken away too. What is a child supposed to do in that situation, surrounded on all sides by misery? It's easy to see how they can develop a negative worldview because that's all they know. Hoping for the best will ultimately lead to disappointment, or worse, after all, a defense mechanism to brace for whatever comes next. But it's not just Shizuka who does this. You can see it in Marina as well, another child that goes through intense trauma at home. It might be immature, but you can understand why she feels the way she does about Shizuka, the indirect source of the pain in her life. The bullying, a desperate act of control in a world where she has none. And when a child is in pain, it's easier to blame a person for everything that's wrong. The world these kids find themselves in is messy and complicated, and it's this world that Takopi walks into. Much like our own, it's a world filled with struggles, and sometimes those struggles can keep us up at night. In moments like that, a little help can go a long way. That's where today's sponsor, Manta Sleep, comes in. Sleep is such an important part of our well-being, so anything that helps you fall asleep and get a deep rest is a win in my book. Now, I've actually used Manta Sleep long before they ever came to me as a sponsor. Here's mine that I bought with my own money. Let me tell you, it is by far the best sleep mask I have ever used. It's incredibly comfortable, breathable, and infinitely adjustable with a premium feel that really stands out. I love the deep eye cups. They block out light completely. They're removable so you can get just the right fit for your face, and since there's no pressure on your eyelids, you can even open your eyes with it on, which is such an underrated feature. It just makes the whole experience way more comfortable than a traditional sleep mask. I've used this thing at night, during the day for naps, on plane rides, and it always helps me get a deep restorative rest no matter where I am. They also offer masks with built-in Bluetooth speakers so you can play some relaxing music or sounds as you fall asleep. Honestly, it helps a lot. It's way more comfortable than trying to sleep with earbuds in, especially if you're a side sleeper like me. I'm genuinely happy to have Manta Sleep as a partner, so if you want to join the pro-nap movement and try one of their masks out for yourself, just head over to their site using the link in the description and use the code ROBES10 for 10% off your first purchase. Thanks again to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the story. Takopi is the polar opposite of the kids, a being with not even a hint of malice in his heart, on a quest to spread happiness throughout the universe. One thing I really appreciate about his character is that he has no ulterior motive. From beginning to end, he just wants people to smile. Even when he goes back in time with the goal of killing Shizuka, it's only because he thinks it'll make Marina happy. It's a dumb and stupid idea, and quite frankly, Takopi isn't really the brightest, but as someone whose only concept of conflict is taking someone's happy paper to voice displeasure, I can't really blame him. If Takopi's attempts to make people happy seem childish, yeah, that's the point. That's at the heart of the conflict in this story. Takopi's optimism versus the reality of Shizuka and Marina's world, and you can even see that reflected in the art. The complexity and jagged edges capturing the idea of instability in the kids' lives, next to Takopi, whose figure and world embody whimsy, an ignorant bliss, simple and smooth. These two styles clash with each other, a conflict in substance and art. How can Takopi's happy gadget solve Shizuka and Marina's problems? What are Shizuka and Marina supposed to do with Takopi's naivety? Two views of the world at war with each other. A world where only happiness exists, the other, only pain. This conflict highlights a tendency children have to split the world in two, all good or all bad. This splitting is something everybody does at some point, whether they realize it or not. It's a normal part of childhood development. It's something children typically grow out of, but sometimes trauma can hinder that growth. In the case of Shizuka and Marina, they both seem to be in a state of arrested development, splitting their world to make sense of their pain. Shizuka is withdrawn, seeing almost everything as hostile. She latches on to Azuma when he helps and discards him the moment he can't. Marina sees Shizuka as a malignant force, the embodiment of everything wrong in her life, her trauma manifesting as aggression towards a thing she sees as bad. Takopi too does his own form of splitting, albeit in the opposite direction, unable to comprehend anything that isn't positive in some way. Problems can be solved with a happy gadget. Arguments, simple misunderstandings that can be resolved with nothing more than a smile. That's the reason I think the unrelenting nature of this story is so necessary. It leaves no room for Takopi to be right. There are limits to optimism, to smiling through the pain, pretending everything is alright. And that's what this story shows. I so desperately want Takopi's naive optimism to be true, to be able to smile because of his innocence, to believe that things as simple as happy gadgets can bring joy to people like Shizuka and Marina. I think deep down, they want Takopi to be right too. There's a reason they end up relying on him when it's clear he doesn't really help at all. But therein lies the trap these kids fall into, the fatal mistake that lies within the story's title. Original sin, a term from Christianity. The first sin of Adam, eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge, a sin inherited by all people the day they were born. Inherent to our being, so they say. To me, I see Takopi as having an original sin as well, one part of his people. The mission to bring a smile to all the universe. It's an innocuous thing. What's wrong with being happy? What's wrong with eating the fruit to know the truth? But if Adam's sin was knowledge, defying God by embracing truth, Takopi's sin is the opposite, defying truth by clinging to ignorance, a refusal to see the world for what it is, all for the sake of happiness. It's an empty happiness that denies the reality these kids know all too well, that the world can sometimes be cruel and harsh and filled with terrible people. But the lesson here isn't to be fatalistic, that we should let that truth weigh us down and give in to that misery. It's that it's okay to feel. Sadness is a part of life, just as happiness is. People can be good and bad, the world has both, and that's okay. Takopi really only starts helping Shizuka when he stops pretending everything is alright. He allows her the space to express her grief and gave her the thing she needed most. Someone to lean on. More than anything, that's what these kids need, a safe space to express their feelings. They can't go on bottling up what they experience, they can't hide it away behind happy gadget smiles. That's the space this story tries to live in, that beyond the black and white that Takopi and the kids know is a world filled with gray. Beautiful and ugly, happy and sad. Growing up is learning to accept both things as one, to stop splitting the world in two. We all learn that lesson eventually. It's a part of getting older. Some learn it later than others, aspects in their life hindering their growth. People like me. I mentioned this before and I still won't go into detail here, but I experienced a trauma growing up that affected how I saw things. And as a result, I split the world in the way these kids do, protected myself by expecting the worst in everything that happened. I festered in my misery, holding it close to me to numb the pain, believing happiness was always outside of my grasp, a thing reserved for a life that wasn't mine. I see myself in Shizuka and Marina, the pain I felt growing up, alone with my thoughts with nowhere for those feelings to go. I see my naive hope in Takopi, my belief that there might be something out there, one good thing in the world, that could make me smile if only I could reach it. It's a simple way of viewing the world, a way that denies nuance. But I held that belief because deep down, I thought it might protect me somehow. To be honest, I believed it for a long time, longer than I should have, and I still find myself thinking that way from time to time. The hard part is you don't realize you do this. It becomes ingrained in the way you think. Left unchecked, it's the lens through which you see everything. Good things are reserved for good people, bad things for bad. And if you believe that, then whatever bad happens to you, there's only one reason that can be. It took therapy for me to realize what I was doing, to grow out of that immaturity. It's embarrassing to say this, but it's the truth. With a lot of help, I stopped seeing binaries and started to see gray. It's not powerlessness, it's not resignation. It's an understanding that there are things in life we can't control for. And no matter what happens, I'm allowed to be happy, to be sad. There's room in my world for both. That's the lesson Shizuka learns at the end, to integrate her view of the world with Takopi's. Because he isn't completely wrong. There are things out there that can make us smile, but that's not the only thing they do. We can find good and bad, bad and good. What Shizuka learns is that there are different aspects to different things and they aren't split so neatly. On first watch, I thought the resolution was a bit sudden, kind of a deus ex machina. Takopi suddenly realizing he can fix his happy camera and go back in time. But in retrospect, I think what happens here has more to do with emotional progression. Takopi leaves despite Shizuka's wishes to give her the space to grow, to stop believing that purely good things exist in a world that has so much more to it than that. And what Takopi leaves behind is a healthy optimism, one that understands the limits of what can be. Shizuka and Marina bond over a drawing, and it allows them to connect with each other for the first time in their lives. And through that is a friendship born from a shared trauma, with an understanding that they're allowed to feel all those complicated feelings within themselves. By the end, neither of their problems is fully solved, but they share their struggles. And what matters is that they no longer live within extremes. Because in that gray is reality, is life, and to grow and mature is to accept that for what it is. The world isn't split neatly between good nor bad. Things are complicated, just like Shizuka and Marina. What they realize about each other is that they aren't good or bad people, they're just people, and within them different aspects of who they are. It allows them to be friends despite their differences and struggles, and in the end, their support for each other is what they needed from the start. The story explores maturing and growing older, what it means to see nuance in the world and what it takes to smile. Happiness doesn't just exist in a world that's only good. In the complete absence of pain, we learn to coexist with everything we feel. We're allowed to feel sorrow at times, allowed to smile as well. That's just the experience of life. I can't help but see my pain, my angst, all the things I felt growing up within this show. It conjured up memories that I thought were dead and buried, some I actively tried to forget. Seeing Shizuka deal with her pain by doing something unspeakable, it broke me, because I understand that urge. It comes from a time in my life I shied away from looking at memories that are hard to relive. I remember my reasonings, my justifications, the seemingly unrelenting pain I was going through, and how desperate I was to make it all stop. I don't know if I ever fully came to terms with what crossed my mind back then. Even now, my desire to give in to that urge and do something that there's no coming back from. I've grown and changed since then, learned healthier ways to deal with my struggles, but shows like this remind me of why I ended up there in the first place. Sometimes fiction offers us an escape from reality, but other times it gives us a safe space to process the things we've been through. As uncomfortable and heartbreaking as this story is, I think it was something I needed to see. The show depicts my desperation in Shizuka, my anger in Marina, even in characters like Azuma, my struggles with my sense of self. It's not easy revisiting those memories, those emotions, that time in my life, but I think it's necessary to properly grow and change, to reflect and make sure we learn the lessons we need to. It's okay to be filled with pain and sorrow. It's natural for us to feel everything we do. In the end, Takopi didn't need happy gadgets. He didn't need to force these kids to smile. He just needed to give them the space to process what they're going through. That's not a fix for problems. It won't solve everything, but it at least allows them to exist within the world. It's a place filled with both good and bad at times, and growing up is learning to accept that, even when it hurts. I'm glad I made it through that time in my life, that I can experience joy in the things I can now. But I'm still growing, still trying to live with nuance. It's hard to unlearn those habits I internalized. I still find myself trying to split the world in two, but now I see that mindset for what it is. A naive way to view the world from a part of me still dealing with trauma, trying to make sense of that pain. It'll be a lifelong struggle to overcome, but stories like these remind me how important it is to grow out of. Because on the other side is a deeper understanding of the world. And maybe that's what it takes to be happy.
As always, thank you so much for watching. This ended up being one of my most personal videos, which I wasn't expecting when I went into it, but it is what it is, I guess. Thank you to all my wonderful patrons for supporting the channel, and if you want to support the channel as well, you can do so for as little as $1. If you like the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this. You can also follow me on socials, links are in the description. You know, I still can't believe I got a sponsor for this thing. It makes this whole operation feel real. Thanks again to Matt to Sleep for that. You can use the link in the description or the affiliate links if you want to get a sleep mask for yourself. It helps out the channel if you do. But that's it from me. I really do appreciate everyone who stops by, whether you're new to the channel or not, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Shoots